Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Carolina Weather Group. This is the first edition of 2018, January 3rd, 2018, Wednesday evening. Boy, it's been a memorable day, and this day will go down in history for a while. It's been an active day along the Carolina coast and South Carolina and North Carolina, a historic snowstorm dumping anywhere between 2 to 6 inches of snow and ice. We'll talk about it in a little while. We'll let Shay and Jared kind of rest up. We do have our regular scheduled program, though, tonight. We have the 45th U.S. Air Force 45th Weather Squadron on with us tonight. They're going to be talking to us about their operations and just what they do along the Space Coast to help launches out and to help out the weather community and the space community. So looking forward to having those folks on with us tonight. But before we get to Ricky and the interview, let's go over a few housekeeping rules. If you are watching tonight on our various live platforms, Facebook Live, Periscope, YouTube, or if you're listening to our podcast, which you can now find on Stitcher and iTunes and Google Play and TuneIn. I think those are our 4 main outlets. We'll let our guests at the end of the show give out a website or Facebook page or a Twitter page where you can message them. So that is the housekeeping rules. We will keep it kind of short on the weather talk here at the beginning of the show because we want to get to our guests. And then afterwards, we'll kind of recap what's happened in South Carolina and what's ongoing in North Carolina and Virginia. So, Ricky, with that, I'll hand it off to you and we'll start the interview tonight. So.
All righty. Thank you so much, Scotty. Yeah, tonight we are so excited to talk about space weather and how the 45th Weather Squadron kind of forecasts space weather and also helps to promote and ensure launch safety down at the Kennedy Space Center. So we've got Captain David Moreno joining us, retired Master Sergeant Tom Taylor, and Technical Sergeant Sarah Knight joining us tonight. All three of you, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So let's kind of go one through one first and kind of introduce all three of you and tell me how you made your start in the Air Force and how you eventually came to Florida.
All right. Well, I basically graduated from Florida State in 2009, and I didn't know whether to go to grad school or go ahead and do operational meteorology. So I went to a recruiting office and talked to the recruiter and told me that I was going to be forecasting for a few years. And so that's what really made me join the Air Force, really giving me that push to really do some operational meteorology right after school.
As for myself, I went to out of high school, went to the University of Florida for about a year. It didn't work out at the time, so decided to join the Air Force. I retired just after 20 years. I was born and raised in Florida, down in Tampa, so it's coming home for me. I came back and started working at Cape Canaveral in 2004, so I've been here for a while.
And then I guess for me, I graduated from the University of Southern Mississippi with a degree in literature with the hopes of teaching, then decided that wasn't quite up my alley. So I enlisted on a whim, got a choice of 7 jobs, and ended up with weather because I had taken a weather lab 1 year in college. So here I am.
And so, Sarah, I mean, thinking back to kind of your first days getting into weather in the Air Force, did you ever think you'd be forecasting weather for rockets instead of airplanes?
Oh, definitely not. I didn't even know that was a possibility back then. I thought I was just going to be, weather forecasting on the radio. But here I am. After a short trip to Korea, I managed to select a job here at Patrick or Cape Canaveral, and it's just been amazing. I never thought I'd be here.
And so, David, that's something I think many people may not know is that there's actually a separate spot for where you guys are located, right? You're not on Kennedy Space Center or Cape Canaveral. You guys are actually at Patrick Air Force Base a little further south.
Yes, that is correct. Our our main base is Patrick Air Force Base. That's where the 45th Space Wing is located. But most of the operations are 20 miles north at Cape Canaveral Air Force Station, and that's where we have all the pads in conjunction with KSC, and that's where we have the multi-domain operations center for weather.
So talk to me about a day-to-day operation at the operations center. What goes on a day-to-day basis, and then what kind of changes when a launch is scheduled?
So basically, we are 24/7 throughout the 365 days of the year. We do provide aviation support to the three main airfields that we have, the airfield at Patrick Air Force Base, and then we also have a skid strip or another airfield at Cape Canaveral. And then we also support the SLF, which is the shuttle landing facility at KSC. So that's part of the aviation support that we provide. We have a TAF for Patrick, which is a 30-hour forecast for airplanes, and then also we do resource protection for the three bases. Then whenever there is a launch, then we support through the three main phases of the operation, which is generation, execution, and recovery, providing again very detailed, tailored forecast for throughout the three phases of the operation. This could be as long as, I mean, it depends on the customer, but we can probably spend about 45 days just supporting one launch from the time when the boosters are arriving at the port through the, again, generation, which is bringing the booster from the port all the way to the pad or the hangar where they're going to put it together. And then at the pad where they're going to either, again, through the generation and execution phase of the process, we put it together, and then the countdown, which is depending again on the customer, T-6 hours, or now with SpaceX about 2 hours, we start providing detailed tailored forecast for that pad. So we can probably divide our operations into space launch operations and then resource protection and aviation support.
You mentioned boosters several times. Do many of those boosters still come via boats and cargo ships to the Cape? And so are you guys forecasting for oceans too?
Yes. We don't provide per se marine forecasting or ocean or wave forecast, but we cannot provide that resource protection. So meaning sometimes they ask for weather through the route of the Mariner, which is the boat that brings the ULA rockets. So yes, we do, and that's part of the ocean. That's part of the reason why our operations center, it's now called the multi-domain, because we operate on the ocean side, also the air, and now lately in the space domain. So we are pretty robust when it comes to that kind of stuff.
Very cool. So Tom, I imagine forecasters that work at the 45th have to be pretty diverse in many different fields of weather and many different kind of elements they have to forecast.
Oh, that's a fact. It takes usually when we get people here, it takes them a good year to get used to the tempo of the weather through here and the multiple operations we have. We are specialized with our range weather forecasters who are here 24/7, like Captain Marino was saying, and they do all the resource protection, the aviation support, and then we have our launch weather officers side that are strictly dedicated to the launches.
And you mentioned earlier you came in 2004, and Florida obviously sees its fair share of hurricanes. What was the 2004 season like for you, and having Cape Canaveral be threatened several times by hurricanes?
It was memorable for sure. That 04 and 05 season, those four hurricanes we had through there. I think we evacuated for 2 of them, and a lot of us on I think it was Charlie. We went to Tampa over to MacDill, and of course it took a big turn and went over Tampa and missed the Cape. But it was just every couple of weeks. It was definitely a memorable season.
And so, Sarah, with these long windows that some of the customers, and that's an interesting thing now, you guys aren't just forecasting for NASA or the Air Force, you're actually forecasting for all these partners that NASA is teaming up with now, SpaceX and Boeing and ULA. What are some of the challenges, and how detailed do the forecasts get in the long range and then the short range?
So in the short range, we tend to get more accurate, towards the day of, obviously, but we can forecast anything from lightning and the timing, especially during the summer when we have sea breeze interactions and customers need to know whether they can do certain operations at a certain time. So we do our very best, certainly, to give them exact timing, you know, as close maybe to the hour as we can give it. And then we give large windows of time. So if they have an operation that's over 6 hours, we try to narrow down the points in that window that would be the most impacted by certain things that they're looking for, either high wind speeds or lightning. And then we try to break it down into what sort of hazard they're going to be running into. A lot of ours do deal with lightning. We are resource protection. There's a lot of people on the ground, a lot of parts in motion, and then of course large, you know, launch vehicles and payloads that are very sensitive to atmospheric changes and charging. So we try to be very detailed as we can, but it just depends on the customer and what they need and what we can provide them. But we do a fairly decent job at it.
Do different customers have different criteria that have to be met for launches depending on the vehicle or the payload or something like that?
Yes, they do.
And so what challenges does that pose, or is it more of kind of just like a checklist of, hey, we have to be within this window when a launch occurs?
A lot of it deals with kind of trading the information back and forth between the shifts. We have 3 shifts that kind of go across the day. So we have to be sure that if we're looking for a certain constraint, that we pass that information along to each other and don't kind of let it fall off or get lost in the mix when we're trading shifts back and forth. Otherwise, it's just keeping the continuity going between a long day-to-day operation.
Shay, I think you had something you want to bring in?
Yes, you said something about sea breezing, so I guess I'm going to bounce this to Captain Moreno, and then Sarah, if you'd like to join in too. You mentioned sea breezes in your forecasting. What kind of sea breeze setup do you have where you're talking about, like where you forecast for, and what sort of instrumentation you use to forecast for the sea breezes in that area? To maybe explain to our viewers what exactly we're talking about here with microscale weather.
So yes, at the Cape, we do have one of the most dense networks of weather sensors, and that entails about 39 towers that have different anemometers at different heights throughout the range. I believe there's anemometers at 6, 54, 100, or 250, and 500 feet. And so based on that network and the bathymetry of the coast, we know where that sea breeze is going to set up. I mean, we're looking at patterns from where the high pressure is located, where that ridge is located in respect with the peninsula, to know whether we are going to need a southwest wind or a southeast wind to be able to kind of localize or pinpoint that sea breeze interaction. And then based on the regime and the steering flow, we know what time that sea breeze is going to start, or that convection is going to start, and whether it's going to make it all the way to the Cape, or if it's going to stall west of I-95, or if it's not even going to make it. So again, because of the pretty dense network that we have, we are able to pinpoint these sea breeze interactions. And again, a lot of the stuff that we have is studies and research that we have been doing for, almost 30 years. We have our own rules of thumb that our forecasters are very familiar with and can actually tell you within half an hour if we're going to have convection over the pads. And Sergeant Knight can probably give you a little bit more detail on how we do that forecasting. It's very accurate because we have about 30-minute lead time for some of the lightning watches that we issue at the Cape.
So I guess a lot of it, we have a radar that we can kind of control the DBZ on it. We can dial it down. We can see like all the way down to -3 if you really want, which kind of gives us a view of the finer particles, mainly like sea spray, the salt in the air. And we watch that really intensely throughout the day. We can actually see the sea breeze start to move in. And then it depends on the wind flow. Like Captain Moreno said, if we have a certain wind direction of an overall regime flow, then we'll expect a sea breeze to either approach from the west or we'll expect the sea breeze to approach from the east, and it's just a matter of the strength of the winds on where they actually end up meeting, and that generates a lot of our convection. So it's really just where do the two sea breezes end up. We know we're going to have one or the other at some point. It's just when and where. So we monitor the speed and the direction just to find out which one's going to overtake the state and where they're going to collide.
That's awesome stuff. I mean,
Yeah, it is pretty fascinating when you see those days on radar all over Florida where you just have convergence of sea breeze boundaries colliding, and even some of your outflow boundaries where these storms flare up. It's just it's amazing. Do you guys have? I know like Weather Service has weather balloons that are launched twice a day. Do you have your own balloons or tethered balloons that you might use for an exact launch time or during that time frame?
Yes, we do. At the Cape, we have a weather station that's responsible for providing the synoptic weather balloon for the eastern coast, and then also we have it on call. So if we believe that there's going to be severe weather, we can give them a call, and they will launch weather balloons for us to be able to evaluate a severe event. I mean, that's the National Weather Service and the National Hurricane Center can also give them a call, and they will launch weather balloons to support their mission as well.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but isn't there, we were given a little behind the scenes when we were down for the Go 16 launch, isn't there some type of robot too you guys can launch a weather balloon with?
Yes, that is correct. We do have one. We partnered up with a high school, a local high school here, that we had a problem. You know, whenever we had a lightning warning, what we call a phase 2 lightning, we can't be outside. It's for the safety of the personnel. So we had a problem where if we had a phase 2 out, we wouldn't be able to launch weather balloons to be able to provide a forecast, a very tailored forecast to the launch customer. And that was affecting the tempo, the launch tempo. So we needed to come up with some sort of idea to be able to launch weather balloons during a phase 2. And so a local high school was able to come up with an idea, and they developed this weather bot. They put together this very genuine invention and donated it to the 45th Weather Squadron. And now we use it during phases. During phase 2, we use the weather bot to launch weather balloons and actually not put anybody in harm's way.
That's awesome. I think all of us wish we had a robot weather balloon launcher. So Tom, you were there for many years during the space shuttle era. Tell us a little bit of some of the stories of space shuttle launches and just the weather that goes into play with them. Launching humans, I imagine, has a little more stress perhaps than launching, launching the regular payloads.
Yeah, it was amazing to me that any of the launches ever came together. For a shuttle launch, for example, we had our normal lightning commit criteria rules along with the shuttle rules for temperature and different things. We also had what they had return RTLS, return to landing site. So in theory, if the shuttle took off and it had a problem, it could circle around and come back and land back on the runway where it took off. That never happened, but it did bring extra weather criteria there. So the conditions for launch around the Cape may have been fine, but because of that return to landing site, there was criteria for no precipitation within 25 miles. We also had to have 3 TAL sites, transatlantic landing sites, for emergencies overseas. And 2 of those 3 sites always had to be good at weather also for a launch to occur. And also then we had the radar up in Virginia and Iceland that both are Greenland, that had to be go also for the shuttle. So there was just a myriad of things, for the shuttle to come. The shuttle, of course, could take off. It wasn't set. It wasn't restricted to a certain window, launch window, like a lot of our payloads are. So a lot of time in the summertime, they would tell us, we're going to launch the afternoon, 2 o'clock on July 5th. And so we'd have to give them a 50% chance of no-go right off the bat, weeks ahead, because, it's Florida weather. Seems like the 2 times we had hail, I remember 2 times we had hail at KSC, and both times the shuttle was on the pad and it got damaged. The nose cones got damaged both times. So it was pretty interesting. It was some fun times. Missed the shuttle.
And with the lightning, tell us about the threats that lightning would pose to a vehicle being struck on the pad. And then this may be something more for the active duty members, but tell us about the new lightning defense systems that are on the pads now.
So one of the major threats, again, for the range is lightning. And the reason why this is a threat is it poses a risk to the electrical system of the rocket. And it can actually cause a threat to the steering system. And so we want to make sure, and every time there's a lightning strike close to a pad where there's a rocket exposed, they have to kind of take it back into the hangar and run several tests to make sure that none of the circuits of the rocket got closed circuit, or there was any damage to the steering system. Because again, with the fact that we are in a very populated location now, even though we're launching to the east, with an issue on the steering system, we have a safety problem for the Florida Peninsula. So recently we upgraded our lightning protection or lightning detection system, which was now it's contracted through I forget the name of the company now, Vizela. And we have a sensor of 10 or a network of 10 sensors, very, very strategically positioned. And they are using the radio frequencies to be able to localize the different lightning step leaders. And so each step leader is sending out a signal, and via triangulation, we are locating that step leader. So with those sensors, we can start pinpointing cloud to cloud or cloud to ground lightning strikes. Right now, the resolution that we have is 50 meters. So we can localize, or we can pinpoint a lightning strike within 50 meters of the actual location where it's struck.
Have you had cases where you've pinpointed a lightning strike and gone out and seen the actual strike impact point?
Yes, there have been several studies where we have to kind of verify the accuracy of that system, and we have it. And there's actually studies with lightning cameras through KSC that have been used to verify the effectiveness and the resolution of the system.
That's pretty cool. It's amazing the technology that exists nowadays, to kind of give us all this real-time monitoring data. Last year, we launched GO-16, one of the new weather satellites. Sarah, talk to us about that, and I guess kind of how exciting it is to launch an actual instrument you're going to be using from Kennedy Space Center or Cape Canaveral.
Right. I'm not sure if I'm allowed to say it or not, but we actually kind of already do, in a way, use it. We have seen GOES-R coming into our own operations center. I was using it actually this afternoon to look at the clouds moving through with this low system that was pushing off the coast. It's amazing the difference that you can see and just the resolution as the products come in. It definitely makes looking at the finer details of some of the smaller cloud features, particularly when we have, that fair weather queue pop up that might turn into thunderstorms later in the evening. We can kind of watch how they develop with the much faster, refresh rate that the GOES-R has. It's a little easier to keep an eye on that when they're developing throughout the summer. It's very nice. And
so with all this technology and all the different advantages, is there one thing you guys wish you still had that was maybe, what's on the dream bucket list for a space weather forecaster out of Kennedy Space Center?
Oh, Well, personally, I've heard myths of phased array system. I hear that would be pretty nice, but I don't know if that'll ever happen. So
I think we all would love to have that.
right.
I think they're talking about it like 2020, right? Isn't that the big goal for everybody?
Something like that. Too long, in my opinion. But anyway, Tom, let's bring you back in for a minute because I'm fascinated at all the stories of the space shuttle and how that launched over the years. Tell us just one or two memorable stories you have about not even just weather, but just kind of launches in general.
I guess something that always affected me personally for shuttle launch is usually before a launch, they would bring the crew through where we work into our building, Morel Operations Center, and they would go talk to the guys that actually would push the button for destruct if the shuttle went off course and they had to blow it up. So it kind of put that human aspect in there for the destruct guys to meet the crew and talk to them and know that, hey, there's people on board, make that impression. And I don't know, that's something that always sticks with me, and now that we're going back, hopefully in the next couple of years to human space flight again, it's a very exciting time to be in this. I mean, it sounds kind of trite, but we do make history every day with every launch. We make history, and things are speeding up so fast. The technology that is coming with the SpaceX and Blue Origin's. It's amazing to me just in the last 10 years how much things have changed.
2 points I want to hit on off of that. Obviously with SpaceX, we now have landings that have to come into play, and not just aircraft shuttle landings, but rocket landings upright. What weather challenges does that pose?
It does bring a few new challenges in, because you've got your launch and landing right away. I mean, it's kind of instantaneous forecast for it. The only difference, I guess, is sometimes they're launching off Kennedy Space Center and landing on Cape Canaveral, which makes it little strange situations for some time. And there's more of that coming. Blue Origins, all those guys are going to start landing. So it's, like I said, it's just an exciting time.
And you also mentioned mishaps, and obviously those can and do occur over the years. The most recent one that comes to mind was the explosion on the pad with SpaceX over at Launch Complex 40. What were some of the things that you guys had to do with that? Were you brought in to forecast or provide on-site disaster support almost, or emergency management support?
We do. We have emergency procedures for any kind of mishap. I'll let Sarah talk a little bit more about that.
From the forecaster standpoint, pretty much what we do is we give support to whoever needs it. So if there's a hazard that might be carried by the wind, we'll get calls asking the wind direction, wind speed, and then they'll kind of lay out sectors that might be affected by various toxics if there are any involved. And then we also run a very large kind of data save so that in the event we want to discuss what happened in the future, or if we want to review kind of any weather that might have attributed to whatever hazard or hazard that might have been going on, we'll have that available to us. So it's basically a lot of administrative work for us where we just save all the products that we use throughout the day, from our forecasts all the way to the models. It just depends on what happens, but it's a large saving process.
I remember when I was down for a SpaceX launch a few years ago, there was concern that some of the exhaust would be blown a certain way. And obviously launches are very popular on both the Cape and also in civilian areas. What type of input do you guys give to maybe NASA or the viewing sites to decide what's a good spot and what's not a good spot, or if any of them need to be closed as a result of weather impacts?
So our wing safety office actually does that. They run blast and toxic programs through our weather models to determine where the fallout for debris or hazardous fumes would go to. And they run these programs consistently before and during the launch. And they've actually had to move people like from one viewing spot to another during a launch countdown due to wind shift.
That's pretty crazy. Well, anything else from the rest of our panel members here? Anything you guys are interested in?
Well, I know that I wanted to ask something that was a little bit on a different subject altogether than from launching, and that is with the Air Force doing meteorology in the Air Force. Are there anything to do with ozone studies and global studies that the Air Force is still doing that you'd like to talk about? And I'll take this one right to Captain Moreno to start out. I think I asked you that offset when we were doing our test hangouts about ozone studies and anything else that the U.S. Air Force does. If you have anything you want to add, I'd love to hear, or we'd love to hear as a panel.
I'm sure there is ozone studies and all that. We are not really focused on that here at the Cape, especially because we do a lot of mesoscale and microscale forecasting. We do have our own scientist or science office at Patrick at the Weather Squadron, and he is in charge of kind of bridging that gap between operations and research. And based on the needs of operations, he is always looking for new developments in science to be able to kind of bring him back to operations. And so there's a lot of studies that are involved with sea breezes, lightning detection systems, with convection, lightning cessation studies, all that kind of stuff that's out there. And we do forecasting initiatives, projects with different universities to be able to kind of better the forecast, the operational forecasting that we do here at the Cape. So there's also the Air Force has this program at the Air Force Institute of Technology where we have meteorology officers or meteorologists that are doing their graduate studies. And basically what we do is every year Air Force Weather sends out a specific operational problems that are posed to the students so that they can develop a solution, and out of this they get a thesis and also a master's degree. So we do have a lot of those initiatives that we send to AFIT, and they provide their studies. For example, last year we had a problem with how early can we cancel a lightning phase 2 or a lightning warning, so that whenever we have a lightning warning, it's not out for 2 hours and we are not impacting operations. So one of the initiatives was, okay, so how soon, what are some of the thresholds, what are some of the signals on radar or sensors that we can start looking at to be able to cancel that warning in time to be able to minimize the impact on operations. And so we were able to, I believe, shave about 12 minutes out of the, on average, of each warning to be able to provide that or give that time back to operators so that we can maximize the time that they are on the pad prepping that rocket so that we can launch it in time.
Understood. So one last question from me, Ricky. I just want to ask, what is the best time of the year that you would consider for launches? I mean, I know in summertime we have sea breezes, wintertime we have strong nor'easters or northerly winds. I mean, it seems like sometimes maybe during the fall or even sometimes during the spring, those may be the better windows, but I'd be interested to hear your thoughts on that.
Climatologically, I believe here for the Cape, we probably want to launch or there's better chance for to launch on time in the fall and winter time, especially because we can time and track a cold front better than we can forecast the onset of sea breezes and eventually a convection. It's just models are getting better to where we can time out that front and better provide a launch window or forecast that launch a few I guess with more days in advance than during the summertime. It's very chaotic, and we might have a day where we're not forecasting sea breeze or convection, and then all of a sudden we have this queue that's gonna start to grow up and give us lightning, or an event where we can't launch because of lightning, or the cloud's too thick that's developing ice particles that could potentially trigger a lightning strike.
So what you're telling me is that my upcoming GOES S launch in March, I shouldn't book the hotel with a non-refundable time just yet.
Well, that's March 1st. We're still looking at a winter type of launch, so it's a little bit more reliable than if you would say June 1st or July 1st.
But less mosquitoes, perhaps, right?
That is true.
Well, go ahead and book it, Ricky, because I'll take the tickets if you don't want to go.
Sounds good. What is the staffing like at the, I guess, the operations center, or the different people at Patrick Air Force Base? What's the staffing like overall in the entire squadron?
For our squadron, we have about 39 people. We have 22 enlisted members, and about 6 officers. A squadron commander is a full bird colonel, 06. We have a DO that's a lieutenant colonel, and then we have 3 flight commanders for the 3 different sections that we have, which is operations, WXR range, and airfield and range weather operations. Then we have also space operations, which is the flight that supports all the launches from the Cape. And then also we have a WXT, which deals with all the tactics and techniques and development. So all the systems and new procedures that come in place to be able to support the operations at the squadron.
Very cool. All right, last final question.
We have 9 civilians.
Sorry about that, Tom.
All righty. Well, I think that kind of wraps up everything that I had. Scotty, anything you want to bring in? Otherwise, maybe have a plug everything here.
Yeah, I was just wanting to ask, I guess not really based off your job, but kind of, do you guys have any memorable weather experiences there throughout your meteorology career?
Any besides hurricanes and
I guess hurricanes.
No, I do want to. I do want to tell you guys something. When I was thinking about it, when you're asking about launch things, back again in the shuttle day, had the opportunity a few times to go up and see the shuttle while it was on the pad. You know, like a day or two before launch. The tower up to 39A or B, and you're about 150 feet in the air, I guess, and you get up to the nose cone of the shuttle, and you think we're launching this shuttle. It's going into space. So up at the top of this tower by the shuttle, there's these mylar balloons floating all over the place, and there's usually 2 young ladies or two people there with foghorns, and their sole job, they stay there 24 hours, and their sole job was to scare the birds away along with the balloons to keep the birds from pecking on the foam, the foam on the nose pad. And it's just one of those things. It's kind of you're here technology, you're launching this thing into space, but my gosh, we going old school to keep the birds away, and not get it wet. It's just crazy.
It makes for a great bar conversation. So what do you do? I get to blow the horn, keep the birds away from the space shuttle.
Exactly.
David, Sarah, do you guys have a memorable weather moment besides working there at the squadron?
I don't know if it really goes towards weather. I'd have to look into the reason why this happens, but I think recently it came up again with the SpaceX, and everybody was watching and saying it was aliens because the plumes spread out across the sky and everybody could see it, and it was very amazing. It happened the same time with NUOS, I believe 4, and it was just an amazing plume. I had never seen anything like that. I didn't even know that was a possibility. It just spread across the sky, and I don't know, I think it's one of the amazing things I've seen so far.
I've always heard that sunset launches are the best ones to go and see if you have the opportunity. Is that true?
Yes, the plume actually becomes rainbow colored. I don't know if anybody's really fond of rainbows, but it's definitely an interesting thing to see.
That is true. Any launch as the sun is either rising or setting, one of the most beautiful launches that we have seen. As far as some of the most memorable stuff that, I mean, I think anytime we're launching or that we are supporting an operation or that we're forecasting and there's an actual severe weather event, it's very interesting to see how the team that we have on the Multi-Domain Operations Center is very dedicated, and they are very proud of what they are doing day to day to be able to do or provide resource protection. Because at the end of the day, it's not just protecting the assets that we have. I mean, the personnel, yes, but it's protecting the capability that we're providing to the United States. You know, the national security, putting out launch rockets and satellites in space to provide really the entire world with a better life and resources for not only science but everybody to study. And I mean, just in our case as weather people, we like data. And every time we have access to better data, better resolution, and for us that are supporting this mission here and be able to say that we are allowing rockets to be launched, it's pretty amazing. So my 3 years are about to be up here, and I don't want to go, but it's just the way it is for active duty people.
Well, we appreciate you guys coming on our show tonight, and thank you for letting us know what you guys do, and we appreciate your service. As we are ending, if any of our I think Shay's got one more. Sorry, Shay.
No, what we got to ask the guests on every show, what got you interested in meteorology? Was it something that happened at a young age, any particular storms, or what got you peaked, or your interest peaked?
For me, you know, I mean, I was kind of always interested in science, period. And being in Florida, especially with hurricane development and stuff like that, when the opportunity came along in the Air Force, I jumped at it.
Very cool. And then Captain Moreno, how about you?
I was very interested on how clouds formed. I grew up in Mexico, Aguascalientes, central part of Mexico. And I was very intrigued by how those clouds were able to be so big and yet still float in the air. I moved to Miami when I was 15 years old, and then I moved way to the center of where all the hurricanes happen. And so that it also gave me more, opened up my mind on how things happen. And so I started looking into what was it that I needed to do to know those kinds of things, and I found meteorology. So I went to Florida State and got my degree, and then wanted to do some operations and joined the Air Force. So yeah, I guess clouds.
Very nice. I'm all about clouds. And how about for you, Sarah? I think I had to put on mute. If you go to the top of the screen, you should be able to unmute yourself at any point if you want to talk about what got you interested in meteorology. If we can't get it, okay, no problem. Bounce it back to you, Scotty.
All right, Shay, thank you. I will give you guys the opportunity if you have any websites or social media you would like to pass on to our followers and listeners. I'll give you that opportunity right now to do so.
I'm at Stormseer50 on Twitter.
All right, thank you, Tom. We appreciate it. David, Sarah, you guys have anything or?
I just have my personal Twitter account and Facebook. I'm not very what's it called? I don't participate that much on social networks. I'm gonna try and be more active, but as of right now, I don't have an account that I can give out. So that where I just don't participate that much.
That's okay. We appreciate it. Well, guys and gentlemen, or ladies, we appreciate you guys coming on tonight, and keep up the good work. And hopefully, we can catch up with you guys later on down the road.
Hey, Scotty, there is a 45th Space Wing page on Facebook. It does talk about all the launches and you know, the Weather Squadron and all the other squadrons on the base. So people might enjoy that.
Awesome, and we'll get James to link that up on our blog post that we do about the show, and that way our followers can link into that. So again, thank you very much for joining us tonight, and stick around if you want to. We are going to transition into the current weather that's going on and our tweets of the week. Do you guys have a preference what you want to do first, panelists?
Let's do currents, I guess, first. Mine's
Okay.
plays into that. So,
all right, go ahead, Ricky. I'll let you. Thank you, David. We appreciate it.
Thank you guys so much. Well, as I think everyone kind of understands now, we've got a nice little low pressure system bombing off the coast, undergoing massive bombogenesis right now. And so I'm going to do my tweet of the week and a little weather summary all at once. This tweet just came out from NASA Sport, appropriate for tonight's show. These are gravity waves propagating outward from that convection off the South North Carolina coast there, off the new GOES 16 satellite. Some of the, I think this is band 13 of the IR satellite from GOES 16. So really cool stuff, and amazing what GOES 16 can show us. But that thing is really deepening now. And of course, as a result of that, we end up getting snow along the North Carolina coastlines, even a little bit inland. I just saw Wake County schools are closed tomorrow. Raleigh seeing a little bit of snow, and we've got blizzard warnings up from my hometown area of Hampton, Virginia, Norfolk, Virginia Beach, portions of Chesapeake. And of course, Shay, you guys had a lot of fun today too, down in the Charleston area dealing with some snow.
Yeah, we sure did. I mean, we got some places got up to 7 inches of snow. I mean, where I live, we got about 4.5 inches, and some surrounding areas 5 inches. I think Jared, he got about 5 inches or so in West Ashley, and we had a really good spread. It started out, it did exactly what we thought it would. And the weather forecasting, National Weather Service Charleston did a great job. Wilmington as well. They hit the nail right on the head. It's going to start out as freezing rain, change to sleet, change to snow. And so that was the progression of the storm for the day. So this morning was pretty nasty. We had roadways were slickening up. It was over at one point, there was over 100 wrecks at one time in the Charleston area. We're just not built for it here. And so when they salt the roads, they only do the major interstates and bridges. And so we just don't have the fleet to handle all the roadways here. So there were lots of accidents, and I hope everybody's okay today. But there were a few severe, some vehicles that were overturned. One slammed into a vehicle in Mount Pleasant. I'm sorry, into a building in Mount Pleasant. So definitely, cue into those things when you have a winter storm approaching. Try not to get on the roads, and that goes for tonight into tomorrow as black ice warnings are being put up by the Weather Service. I saw them mention that in a tweet a little while ago, and this will probably be sticking around for several days. Some of this ice and slush may occur tomorrow, and then refreeze again tomorrow night. Do it again on Saturday, refreeze, or Friday, and refreeze again Friday night, because our low temperatures are going to be in the low 20s each night, at least until Sunday, Monday, when we finally get a warm up. That's kind of where we are. But I'll go ahead and do my tweet of the week, and I'll pass it on to Jared. Let me see if I can get it going here. Oh, I just had it up on screen. Give me just a second.
By the way, there's thunder snow in Wilmington right now.
Yeah, I thought that we might get that this morning, actually, because some of the convective banding was really cranking up along the coastline. It looked almost like you were going to see some thunder snow, but the deformation zone, the warm nose was kept trying to work into the coast, so we had snow and then a little bit of sleet trying to push in, and then it backed out again, and then we had all snow. But this is the tweet of the week. I just got this a little while ago. This is someone I know, actually, named Brandon Cordina, and he's a professional kiteboarder with Best Kites. And here he is snow kiting, and this is at Patriots Point soccer fields over Mount Pleasant, South Carolina. And to be able to snow kite in Charleston, South Carolina, I mean, how ultra rare is that? I mean, this is something you do in like Colorado, or up in the mountains or out west over the open plains. But this is, it's pretty neat. So there's my tweet of the week. Snow kiting in Charleston, South Carolina. What a rarity.
Shay, I'm surprised that wasn't you out there earlier today.
Yeah, I thought about it. Trust me, if I could have gotten in the car to go meet him, I've got the snowboard here. I wanted to so badly, but the roads were just too treacherous. I think the Wando Bridge is too steep for any cars to get up. I don't know if anybody made it in the ice.
All right, well, Jared, we'll pass it to you, buddy. I know it's been busy for you as well.
Yeah, to put it mildly, or not mildly, it was very cold. I only was able to take about 10 minutes at a time, but this is going to be one of those benchmark days for Charlestonians. This is the third snowiest day all time on record at 5.3 inches at the National Weather Service office at the airport. We're going to be talking about this one for a long time. Very fun way. And as it turns out, it's essentially going to give students in Charleston County yet another week of winter break. So because they're now going back on Monday. They're not taking any chances of the black ice or anything like that. So going to be interesting to, see how we recover from this. This is we haven't had a snow like this since really 1989. We had some accumulations, some decent accumulations around Valentine's Day 2010. And that made the roads a little bit messy, but nothing like this. I mean, this is a whole new league here, folks. It's been rather wild. So my tweet of the week, I mean, everyone in Charleston has been fantastic about getting photos out and doing snow totals and measurements. Everyone has just been remarkable at that. It's been very hard to choose one, but this one really stood out for me. So this is by Mark Swick. He was. It looks like he was elevated. He looks like he was around MUSC downtown, but you have a look at the on-ramp and kind of the interchange there at Calhoun Street and the James Island Connector, South Carolina Route 30. And this is just something you don't see. You've got snow just covering all the roads there. And this is downtown. This is right at the water. This is right at the harbor. And you can see, you'll be able to see the snow falling here. He's got another shot. Let me see if it'll load there. Yeah, so there's another one right there, a little bit of a panoramic shot. And y'all, this is I've been doing social weather for about 10 years. Easily my favorite day. Easily just it was pretty awesome, to put it mildly. So Scotty, back to you, my friend.
All right, Jared, thank you. James, I see that you've got a picture pulled up, so I'll let you go ahead and do your tweet of the week.
Yeah, I don't want to rain on anybody's parade, but Shay was talking about being built infrastructure-wise, and I just want to show a picture of my car here, and it didn't come out very well in photography, but as I wrote in the text, you think I drove up north, returning from New York Christmas? Lots of salt on the road, and I will just briefly share that we were up there about a week ago when they got about 2 inches of snow or so, and everybody just kind of went, whatever. So, not trying to take away, I think infrastructure is a huge part of what makes the difference between a winter storm up north, a winter storm down south. Peter's not here, so I don't know if I'm repping the northern half of the country tonight, but I'm just going to throw this question out as a hypothetical because I'm not expecting anybody to do the math, and I know it doesn't make any sense for major cities and municipalities down south to buy a bunch of plows to have them sitting around, but I've seen other municipalities up north who take snow plows and put them onto the front of vehicles that already exist, like garbage trucks that you already own. So, I'm interested that they're not going back to school until Monday, Jared. That seems like if businesses follow the same, I always just kind of wonder what that buy a plow, loss of revenue handoff is. But
that's what we do in the city of Hampton. They strap a plow or a front to anything. And I got to say, the city of Hampton does a pretty darn good job of actually clearing all the snow and everything. The issue is going to be upcoming to figure out if we can actually clear the snow, because it's all going to fall and freeze with 11 degrees, turn to ice. But that's different.
You're right. Ice is a different game. Ice is a much different game.
I think James is just trying to use an excuse to rib at us here in Charleston.
I'm not trying.
Yes, I know we're not prepared. We just don't have that kind of mentality, James. We get it maybe once a year.
I will say we kept the Ravenel Bridge open this time. I don't know how it happened.
That was impressive.
I don't know how it happened. I mean, we had a trace of ice and they shut that thing down for 4 hours last Friday. I don't know how we did it, but kudos to DOT and everybody. We finally got it right. Now it's going to be interesting to see if any chunks of ice fall off the cables like they did after the 2014 ice storm.
Yep.
And
you think they were running electricity through it this time? Maybe they hooked up some battery cables through the cable stays.
Space heaters, right? I mean,
well,
man.
Ashley, do you have a tweet of the week? You also dealt with winter weather in the past week or so.
Yeah, so I actually did have a tweet of the week. I'm trying to get it up right now. maybe. Let's see. Is it up now?
Yes, it is.
All right.
Yes.
So mine's not actually winter weather related, but it is emergency management related, and it's more on the recovery aspect. So I was flipping through Twitter and I saw this today, and I thought this sign was absolutely awesome because the county put this up after the wildfires in Sonoma County a few months ago. And basically it's discussing the flash flooding risks over those burn scar areas, which we know is a huge player in flooding after those kinds of fires. And I love these signs because it brings awareness to the public that are there if they're hiking or camping or anything like that. But it's also in Spanish, which is amazing too, because we work really hard to do multiple languages, but it gets very tough to actually apply that. So it's great to see that that's catching on through emergency management, even now in recovery. So I would love to see more of these signs go up in disaster recovery.
That is a great tweet. That's a thing that I know we had to deal with in Western North Carolina last year. Yeah, last year after the wildfires. So very good information there.
Yeah, definitely.
All right, well, I'll go last. I am the only person on this panel who has not had to deal with winter weather in the past 10 days, and I'm quite jealous that my friends Shay and Jared got historic snowstorms, and Ricky up in his area in Tennessee got some northwest flow snow, and Ashley got some freezing rain, and Western North Carolina got absolutely nothing. But I will say this before I share them because it kind of is linked into my tweet of the week. One thing that I enjoy about snow is it gives you an opportunity. Sorry, James, I don't know if you're listening right now, but it does give you an opportunity to kind of just shut down and enjoy the family. I got to see pictures of Shay today playing with his kids out in the yard, sledding in the neighborhood. I got to see Jared walk through his neighborhood and talk to his neighbors and enjoy the snow. And one thing I love about snow days is that it gives you the opportunity to slow down and enjoy life and what life gives you. So today's, I'm working with a new computer, so give me just a second. So today's tweet of the week is of a family who was at the Isle of Palms today. They were doing snow/sand angels on the beach today with the snow that was falling. This from Tyler McCurry. It was actually on Jared's social media Charleston Weather Twitter page today, and I snatched it off of there, but I thought this was really cool. That's the one thing I love about snow days is it gives you the opportunity to kind of just stop what you're doing in your everyday busy life and enjoy family and friends, and you don't get to do it a lot in the South. So sorry, James, to rain on your parade, but we love the snow here in the South, and I think for one reason it's because you get to spend times with friends and family. Go ahead.
And the best part is when nightfall comes, I have a live image up that represents what you get to do in the evening.
That's right.
That is not a Yule log. That is my fireplace. So everyone cozy up by the fire and stay warm.
That's exactly what my kids did after they got done playing in the snow. We had the fireplace going and gave them some hot chocolate and all that. So one final view to supplement what Ricky showed. Here's the RGB air mass for this low pressure system off the coastline. You can see it starting in its bombogenesis stage, or what we call bombing out. I don't consider this called a bomb cyclone, as I've been seeing, but it's an extratropical cyclone that is in the bombogenesis stage. So this will be very interesting to see how this plays out in the next 24 to 36 hours. So if you live along the mid-Atlantic and the Northeast, good luck to you. Stay warm, stay safe. You got one heck of a storm on the way to you tonight and tomorrow.
Look at those last 5 to 6 frames there, Shay, and how it kind of just surges up into North Carolina.
Oh, yeah. Let me pull that back up again.
Yeah, like watch right there, the coast. You see right there.
Boom. Yeah.
Boom, big moisture surge.
That's, you got to factor in, your warm Gulf Stream that's sitting right over it, and that 76 to 78 degree water. And then your air mass is in the 20s at the surface. And then you have your freezing column aloft, and it's just a giant clash of air, 2 different air masses right there. It's really amazing stuff.
I can't wait to get the GLM data so we can see what the lightning looks like in that.
No doubt, right? Yeah, I can't wait to see that for tropical systems as well.
All right, guys. Well, we'll close this show down again. For those folks who got snow today, make sure you get out and enjoy it. For everybody in the Southeast, another surge of Arctic air is moving in. Looks like we're going to be very cold Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, and we start to moderate through the later part of the weekend. So just be mindful of a few more days below freezing, and then looks like next week we start to warm up. And talking about next week, let's quickly promote the show. We are going to be talking about how summertime thunderstorms are changing. We've talked about this subject a little bit last year, but Andy Perrine from NCAR will be joining us to talk about that. So he'll be our guest next week. And then after that, we're going to be talking about forecasting wildfires. So Ashley was mentioning that just a little bit ago. Todd Lindley from the National Weather Service in Norman, Oklahoma will be joining us on the 17th. So that's the next couple weeks here on the Carolina Weather Group. We hope you have a great weekend. Stay safe out there. Stay warm. Make sure you're following us on Twitter and Facebook. Download our podcast on Stitcher, TuneIn Radio, Google Play, iTunes. Did I forget anything else, James?
Yeah, perfect, Scotty.
Perfect. Visit our website, carolinaweathergroup.com, and we're also on Patreon, right?
Yeah, Patreon. If you want to support us, you can support us there, or you could also support us by downloading the Stormwatch Plus app to your iOS device, then using the reference code Carolina to stay abreast of all of the severe weather and bulletins that are issued to your area. They'll come straight to your phone.
James, you look like you're doing like a classic 70s love song, like commercial, you know?
Carolina Weather Group After Dark.
All right. We're done. Have a great weekend. We'll talk to you next week.